Mate to Thrive Nation, you might be listening out there. You've had chronic disease for a long time. We're going to be talking about the mind-body connection with a mind-body connection expert. He's a naturopathic doctor. He's a master clinician in homeopathy, two of my favorite areas. And being a doctor of Chinese medicine and acupuncture for so many years, we're going to have a deep, deep dive into some root causes and your mind, your emotions, your belief systems, the parts of you that you probably haven't looked at if you've been to an endocrinologist, a rheumatologist. It's a privilege and a pleasure to have an incredible child of God, Dr. Moshe Block, on.
Hey, thank you so much, Steve. It's a thrill and an honor and a pleasure to be on with you.
Brilliant. Now, let's just talk about some archetypes. I want to talk about autoimmune. I've never seen autoimmune exponentially increase like this. I hate the terminology that says, oh, my body's attacking myself. Your body's for you, it's with you. We don't need this war terminology of panic attack and heart attack and your body attacking yourselves. These are canaries in the coal mine. They are signs and symptoms of something far deeper going on. So take us through maybe something ulcerative colitis or Crohn's or rheumatoid arthritis, some of these, conditions or manifestations of disease. I don't even like diagnoses, to be honest, because they really just sort of they give a term to people which then just boxes them in. But give us
Yeah,
two sort of patterns of disease or diagnoses that people can say, hang on, that's me. I've tried everything and I really want to look at a different approach.
absolutely. Yes, great topic to dive into. So, first of all, what I've come to observe is that the body is a reflection of the mind. So that what's happening in the body for chronic illness, it's a little different for acute. So we'll talk about chronic illness. Uh, the body is actually doesn't operate unto itself. There's a great quote in the Course in Miracles. Only the mind is capable of error. The body is capable of acting wrongly only when it is responding to misthought. So the body is our it's totally the temple. And when our mind inhabiting the temple is sending it false or incorrect statements, then it will just sort of mirror that. It will reflect that. So I'll give you an example of a case of a young man who had ulcerative colitis. I worked with him kind of in the beginning of my career. It's going back like a good 20 years now, but I still remember this case vividly. He was a big pharma rep. Montreal has a lot of big pharmaceutical industry right there.
Mm.
And he said, I have ulcerative colitis. I've tried everything. And I said, well, I do mind body stuff. He goes, oh, there's nothing in my mind. It's just my body. And I said, okay, well, let's just give it a go for a sec. So I interviewed him. I asked him the questions that I ask using my process called the Vis Dialogue, which we can discuss later if you like. And within 15, 20 minutes, it became very clear what had happened to him and what had caused his illness. So he lived in Toronto and he moved to Montreal, which is a 5-hour drive in Canada. And he had a very tight, close group of friends in Toronto. And when he moved to Montreal, it started to literally eat him up inside that they could be forgetting about him. He was gone and he thought out of sight, out of mind. It was eating him up. And that's how he felt. He felt like it was eating him up. And that's exactly what the body responded to feel. Well, actually, like ulcerations and like the body was eating itself up. So what was interesting is he had done like a lot of research into the most cutting edge, current, and best forms of diet. And he would eat so well in Montreal and still have horrible symptoms of like bloody stools, mucousy stools, typical for ulcerative colitis. And then he would go to Toronto and he would hang out with his friends. They would eat hot dogs and pizza and drink beer and smoke weed and smoke cigarettes, and he'd have no symptoms. So he was back in a place of comfort for himself and not eating himself up because he saw, oh, they love me and I'm okay. Now, there was a deeper connection there to his dad, but this just shows you how powerful it is as the mind reflecting the body, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, the body reflecting the mind. The body reflecting the mind. With
Yeah.
him eating, it was eating himself alive, like bothering him so deeply.
So what
Yeah,
was the
as one.
root belief that he said? He's like, oh, they've forgotten about me. I'm being abandoned. I'm lonely. No one cares for
Yeah,
me. And so then
yeah,
he started with that ruminating thought, and that ruminating force affected the vital energy, the flow within his body, and a part of his body, for some reason, the colon responded. Now, everybody's got a
right.
different internal channel, so it can respond in different ways. Once we start with a toxic thought that manifests a very powerful energy, and the greater the amplification of that thought and that energy is, the greater probably the manifestation and disease.
Correct, correct. So as I said, there was a father component there. So this was actually a secondary issue with his friends. The primary one, the archetypal original wound was with his father. His father was very busy, and he was a sort of stern and distant man, and it sort of imparted to this man who, as a boy, felt like I am not important to my father. I'm unimportant. And so when the idea that he was unimportant to his friends was so painful because it triggered the original wound that he was unimportant to his father.
So it was a
And
separation between him and his father, a pain and a distance, a lack of connection, and that was then triggered by his friends.
correct, exactly, exactly. Yeah. And yeah, I find it's so fascinating. And it's also very empowering for people suffering with illness to understand that the healing power of nature, the healing power of God resides within them and is always at the ready to heal the body, provided that we can recognize what we're saying or doing or choosing that is misaligned with our true nature.
But
Yeah.
I'm going to, because I think you're a seasoned practitioner and I've been here after 26 years, is someone would say then, say in South Africa or America, or I don't know what about Canada, is the glyphosate usage is so high, it's causing like really significant problems on the gluten. You have gluten, too much of that. Unfortunately, that's been a manifestation of sin and evil that people have used this. They know how damaging it. They know how much it's a chelator causing a lot of problems. It's not the same in the form that actually God created in the environment. Therefore, it's having a significant inflammatory effect on the bowel. So
Yes.
now you've got
Yes.
that, but now you've got someone who says, oh, no, no, this is a mind body connection. You're not thinking correctly. And someone else saying, listen, I don't really have that. And I've got ulcerative colitis because I'm just eating the incorrect food that's actually been bastardized over many years. How would you respond to that?
Yes, absolutely. Great question. Very valid. Very valid. So there's a difference between a root cause and a triggering cause.
Okay.
There's another word there for the trigger. It's not exactly, but that's just generally a gist. I'm blanking out on the term. It's a root cause and a uh, hopefully it'll come to me, but that's the general gist is that so you have the root cause. The root cause of that illness is his relationship with his father and it eats him up that he's not important. Okay, that's the root cause. The exciting cause, there we go, there's the word. The exciting cause could be um, gluten. An exciting cause will inflame and trigger a manifestation of the symptoms upon the foundation of the underlying cause. So, like, for example, some people also say their child's epilepsy is caused by high tension wires, going past high tension wires, or if they watch something that's very stroby on the TV, it'll excite the brain. But again, that's an exciting cause. The root cause is some kind of deep disconnect or a lack of security in the child and a false belief that has been adopted. So we can have all kinds of exciting causes, and they will bring on a flare up. They will aggravate the situation in the body. However, when the root cause is addressed, they will not do that to the same degree. And God willing, not at all when the person has really transcended that, you could say, karmic issue, because I really feel that when we have a chronic a chronic illness, any chronic illness, that's where we're stuck in our soul's evolution. Because in my awareness, and I wonder if you share the same sentiment, Steve. We're here, like the most important mission or purpose of our life is to realize, to recognize, to reawaken to who we are. And that's part of the divine one, so I feel that's of utmost importance. So when we get a chronic illness, that is a God, nature's way of showing us where we're stuck in our evolution to that oneness. So it's a gift to have these manifestations of chronic illness, because then it helps us get to the bottom of it, and that helps us to unlock, and then it helps us to evolve. So once we've gotten that unlocking process, the body no longer needs to have that problem. It can move past it. So the exciting cause is diminished by the root cause being addressed.
Got you. But have we not, Dr. Moshe, destroyed the environment, God's environment, to such a degree? We talk about clean air, clean water, clean food, and correct light. The light that's been put in the sun, and how important that is. Have we not destroyed the environment to such a degree that even if we don't have major root causes, we know who we are, we connected spiritually, we're connected to one another, we have a very good, strong community, we are well loved, we are growing in unconditional love and connection, and yet we still can get sick just because the destruction of Earth and its elements has gone to such unprecedented levels?
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting question. I think it's open for some debate. And the reason why I say that is, a lot of industry, a lot of things, transportation, shut down during the COVID pandemic. And it seemed like nature bounced back pretty quickly. There were dolphins swimming through the waterways of Florence. Is it Florence?
Venice.
No, where's the? Yeah, thank you, Venice. Venice, yeah, very, very good. There were blossoming plants growing in places that you might have thought were toxic. I think nature has a way of bouncing back quickly. I think the impact that we do have on the environment does have a dampening effect on the vital energy, so that it's a balancing act. When it is extreme, it has to be addressed. Otherwise, the person can't heal. When it's moderate, it can go either way. If the person has a very good connection with themselves and they have an unperturbed intelligence, not too much resistance or opposition in their environment, mental, emotional environment, then they can handle it. When it's mild to moderate, then it's not as big of a problem and not as big of as a dissuading factor towards that healing process. So like if a person is under such a heavy load, then we have to address that at the physical. Let's say like detoxification, nutritionally, that's important. And I've seen that in my own life. I've seen both examples where nothing was touching it on the physical, and latest cutting edge nutritional diet, nothing was touching it. And I had a spontaneous healing by getting to the root cause of a belief. And then in another situation, I got extremely ill, and my vital force was so dampened by the illness and toxicity that I had to address that before I could even operate my brain enough to function. So it's a balancing act. I wouldn't say it applies across humanity. It depends on the person, depends on where they live, and it depends on those different factors, right?
Okay,
yeah.
Cool. Let's talk maybe about another example, rheumatoid arthritis or other autoimmune. And maybe you want to comment first, just being in the US, of the increase in autoimmune, because I've just seen it significant. Maybe another belief system that's very common with people with regards to the narration that the self-talk that they are continually hearing or speaking over themselves with regards to maybe a female.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me address some of these different elements to autoimmune, because I do see the increase, and I do think that that has to do with the experimental shots that a lot of people received. I don't know what percentage of the population of the world. Do you know how many people got it percentage wise?
No,
60, 70% maybe?
I wouldn't
So
be able to. I'd be guessing to say how the percentage overall. Although I did have Peter McCulloch on the podcast, I should ask his team with regards to how many people worldwide.
yeah, that's an interesting question. I'm sure it's quite alarming. And
Yeah.
even if it was 20 to 30%, we would be seeing huge numbers of, strange sort of manifestations of illness, because this is an um, experimental, treatment that, you know, uses the building blocks of our bodies to altering it. Just we don't even understand the implications. So I'm not surprised that we're seeing an increase, but there are other elements there which involve the mind body, the mind level. So there's a principle in healing that I've discovered, and it has to do with injury and the chronic effects of injury. So, let's say we do look at the injury that resulted from, the introduction of the mRNA vaccines. That's an injury. So whenever somebody gets injured, we ask the question, what was going on right before, right during, and right after you got injured? And that is going to be a key. The injury itself is not what causes the chronic problem. It is what is accompanying it in the person's mental, emotional field that causes that injury to get stuck in their field and not able for the body to respond and heal, right? So many people were pressured to take the shots at a time when there was great fear, and everybody had a different pressure point, so some people absolutely needed to have to be able to travel. The idea of not being able to travel was, unacceptable to them. Now, there's a question there in their relationship with travel. What does travel give them that they feel like they don't have inside themselves? Travel is in homeopathy is part of the tubercular miasm, the desire to travel. The birds are very migratory and always moving, and the bird remedies are very tubercular. So it's this restlessness and this need for change, and people couldn't handle the feeling of being cooped up. So that was their pressure point.
Yeah.
Other people, it was, their sort of positively, naively manipulable side to them, that they want to do good. And so they're lacking discernment about the whole situation. So there's some invitation for soul's evolution there, for a person to recognize what they chose, what they were choosing that introduced this injury, this insult to them. And that has to be addressed. When I was sick for the second time with myasthenia gravis, autoimmune, I had a very, very high level of antimony metal, which is a very toxic heavy metal. It was 50 times the level of normal level, 50 times. And I had made some choices in my life to play around with antimony in an effort to do alchemy, in an effort to become enlightened. So that was a big life lesson for me, like externalization of enlightenment and of quick, fast choices rather than, nose to the grindstone. It might take 40, 50 years, but let's do this in a way which is good and true. And I was trying all kinds of things. I was very sick. It wasn't until I acknowledged that error of mine in jeopardizing my health for the sake of enlightenment that I felt some movement on the vital level. So I was literally laying in bed. I was basically completely paralyzed, and something clicked. I had a recognition of my error, and I went, shit, like I really did this to myself. I did this to myself. I felt a light bulb click in my vital force, and something started to flow. It was the beginning of my healing process in that bout of autoimmune disease. So we have to acknowledge what we have chosen, which is really not in our best interest, right? That's a big thing in autoimmune. Another thing is, which I've seen, and I want to say a vast majority of my cases, Steve, is this a self-attack. So if the body, like the ulcerative colitis example, the body is reflecting what's going on in the mind. So if we see that the body's attacking itself, we can often find this person doing the very same thing to themselves. They are attacking themselves. Like let's say I'm not good enough, or, oh, that was stupid. I shouldn't have said that. Stupid. Some kind of self-criticism. There could be anger, and the anger has no expression for whatever reason. The person that they're wanting to hear is manipulative, narcissistic, and turns it around, and they internalize the anger. So when the anger is internalized, there's a lot of energy in anger, and it goes against the self. And then the body says, oh, okay, we're in the business of turning against ourselves. So the cells will then turn against themselves. So I appreciate the angle from which you were describing the words that we don't want to empower, like heart attack and, autoimmune body attacking itself. Although in this context, there is some truth to it in the sense that the person is doing that to themselves. But they shouldn't. That's their task, to realize that whatever they're doing, which is turning against themselves, is not necessary, and it's actually not good for them. It's not serving them. It's causing their illness.
And it's a misbelief of who they are, because at the end of the day, they don't know who they are. That's why they keep on, and I would use the word breaking down. You keep on breaking down instead of nourishing. If you're not nourishing your mind, your soul, your will, your emotions, then what's going to happen is you're going to start breaking down. And so I think you're either building up and nourishing and getting stronger. It's like, I saw a patient today and she says, oh, my menopause brain. Oh, that's my memory. Oh, I'm not going to remember things. Oh, I said, you are going to partner with that thought. You're going to come into line with that thought, or you're going to say this: my brain and my mind and my memory gets better every year. And that's one of the narratives that is, who are you with regards to this process? If you're going to just accept that, you're going to move towards that. Am I right?
Absolutely. Like when people say my myasthenia gravis, my migraines, they're owning that exactly, and they're attached. So in every moment, there is a potential for a spontaneous cure, spontaneous healing. So why would you want to be doubling down on this language that's very disempowering for you? That's a vital secondary part of the process. And it could be actually an obstacle to cure, that the person is just so attached to their condition that they've owned it. And they might even have, well, actually, it happens a lot, Steve, that people are invested in their illness because it's giving them what they are desiring. It could be attention, it could be rest, it could be money, there could be lots of things. So those things have to be sorted out as well for the person. In other words, they have to choose between fulfilling a desire and actual health. And when the heart is attached to the desire, this path can be very difficult to work with someone because they actually desire what's killing them, or they desire what is resulting in their illness. And so with patience and time and repetition and bringing them there, asking the same questions, bringing them to the awareness that what they're actually believing is good for them is not, it requires a point of clarity for them to recognize, oh yeah, it's not good for me. This isn't serving me. Otherwise, it'll like, you can't tear a person's heart away from a desire, right? If you try to tear their heart away, it'll cling on with twice the vigor and power. So it's something that has to be really gently and organically chosen by the person. Otherwise, there's no hope in going that mind-body way. And at best, you can just, to a minor or moderate degree, suppress the symptoms for a time, but then they're going to come back also with a vengeance. Because so if the body is this reflection of the mind, then the body's task is to reflect the mind. And if we bring these supplements or drugs and we start suppressing or alleviating the symptoms at the material level, then the body gets confused by the external input and its internal directives to attack itself or to digest itself or to shut down if they're shutting down. And so what the body will do is, in time, it will develop strength against the external input of the supplements or the drugs or the herbal preparations, the botanical formulas, and it will strengthen against the disease because it has to manifest what its higher directives are. So it strengthens. So when we treat disease through external means, we're actually strengthening the disease. And at times that's necessary if those symptoms are going to kill the person, in emergency situations, we have to stop the symptoms or the person is going to die. But in chronic illness, when we're just addressing the symptoms at the body level, and that could even be functionally, it could even be supplement, it could be like, healthy supplements. If the symptoms are being alleviated without the person's mental awareness of the root cause, then we have a problem of strengthening the illness. And we also have what we observe clinically with a rebound effect and physiological adaptation to the level of the drug level. So a patient responds at X level, and then the body strengthens against that level, and that dosage of the drug doesn't work anymore. We need to augment the level of the drug, and then the body will strengthen against that. We were first curling 50 pounds and now we're up to 75 pounds, right?
Got you.
And then when those drugs are removed, we'll see a rebound effect because the symptoms have been held down like a beach ball held underneath the ocean water. So we're holding it under the water, so we're not seeing its manifestation. But when we take away the drug, we take away the hands, it'll pop out of the water. And that is the strength exerting itself against the external pressure of the drug or the supplement. So that strength exerting will at time when there's no more external influence, it will calm itself down because it's no longer necessary. So when people come off their drugs, there is this rebound effect to be expected. And that makes the person think, oh my God, look at these symptoms. I'm so sick. I need to have the drug again or the supplement or something. But it's a temporary situation for the most part. And a person needs to have a little patience to get through that. Maybe put a piece of wood and bite on the piece of wood.
As long as they get in the mind-body work, and that's where your Vis Dialogue's coming in. Maybe you'll take us through that, because if they're not, all they're doing is they're allowing the manifestation of that, which is good, but they can't cope in life. So if they're not getting the mind-body work and the Vis Dialogue done, all that's going to happen is they're going to be in an absolute state, an emergency, overwhelmed state. So take us through your process of the Vis Dialogue.
Sure. Excellent point. Yeah, so the Vis Dialogue is a form, I call it, in the title of my book, I say mind-body medicine meets psychology. And really it is it's a form, counseling is a bit of a misnomer because counseling indicates that you're counseling, you're providing insight to the person. And with the Vis Dialogue, it's based on the idea that the truth lives in every individual, and we're not offering expert advice. We're not giving our opinion or asking questions to get the person to reflect deeper and deeper. It's almost like a process of hypnosis, so that with the conscious mind, the person starts reflecting inward, and with time, 45 minutes, an hour, they are in an altered state where they are communicating with their inner being, their subconscious mind, the feelings, the buried beliefs, and these are becoming revealed for the person to see with their conscious mind what they're actually choosing to see or believe in their subconscious. So there's a process in the Vis Dialogue. There's two phases. The first one is discovery. We're just asking, and revealing what the pattern is there, what the belief is. And then in the second part, it's resolution. It's where we go from, okay, this is what you're believing. Do you want to believe? Is this good for you, first of all? Is it, and if the person says no, then we go on, okay, so do you want to keep living that way? And then they say no, but, and then we work through all the buts, because there could be a lot of buts. And so that's the resolution phase. And if a person is so attached to the belief that when they say, well, how do you think this is working out for you? Is this serving for you? And they say, yes, it is. Then we're stuck. I call it stuck in transition, because we're transitioning from the discovery to the resolution. And if they're stuck in transition, then we just have to deal with that for the time being, because we can't go into resolution if the person is still
believing
identifying
that it's helping them.
Yeah.
So take us through a bit of a process now. Like, you asked me some questions, and then, look, I haven't missed a day's work in 26 years here to sickness, oil, health. And I just believe that every single day, we've got a little acronym, TGIM, thank God it's Monday, because we believe every single day is a gift from God, absolutely a gift of God for us to manifest who we are. But take us through a bit of a process in terms of what questions you will ask, and a belief that's common with regards to disease.
Sure. So it's different for every person. It's a process of that it requires a certain level of intuition, but certainly there's lots of training involved. So let's say a person has migraines. So we start with the nuts and bolts question, and I call them nuts and bolts because it's the physical manifestation. When does it come on? How severe is it? Where do you feel it? What does it feel like? Are there any accompanying symptoms? We call this in naturopathic medicine old carts: onset, location, duration, et cetera, et cetera. So I get all that stuff, and I'm really listening for the language that they use to paint the picture of how it feels for them, because that is going to become vital when we get down into the subconscious and they start using the same language to describe a situation that they're in. For example, I had a case of a woman who had chronic kidney stones, and the pain of the kidney stones was squeezing, and it felt like it was stuck between these two very powerful forces, and it felt very painful, like it was squeezing. And the kidney stones had started shortly after she had begun a new job. And the new job was as middle management, and she was being squeezed between upper management saying, hey, she was a nurse manager, get your nurses to do this. And she was being squeezed by the nurses going, hey, get upper management to help us do this. So she felt squeezed. She didn't know how to deal with it. She didn't have that kind of disposition. And then she started to get these kidney stones. And after I think it was 13 to 15 years on the job, she had 2 more episodes of kidney stones, which she was getting regularly, like bi-monthly, and then she had no more. So the momentum of the illness at the physical took a little bit of time after the root cause was addressed. It took a couple of more months for it to ease down into a point of resolution and stillness. And then she didn't have any more following that. So that's an example of that. So So let's say we're working with someone with migraine. So once I collect all that initial data, then I'll say there's different entry points into the subconscious, into the going beyond just the physical stuff, getting into the mental emotional. So one of the common ones is, when did it start? Oh, it started 10 years ago. And did anything happen in your life, at that time? Well, no, not really. I got married. I got it, like people will I'm making that, I'm speaking that lightly, because people will often dismiss a correlation at this stage between the cause and the symptoms, because they're kind of the conscious mind doesn't want to go there. It wants to be in control. It doesn't understand that realm, and it likes to like deny stuff. So yeah, I got married. Oh, what's your marriage like? Well, it's okay, but we don't always get along. Well, tell me about that. What's going on? Like, so I'll literally investigate whatever whatever the stream of response that the person tells is revealing itself. I will ask questions, and then my role as a practitioner is to make sure that people stay on track, because one of the biggest problems that people have is that they don't want to go there. I mean, if they did want to go there, they would have gotten there already. So there are issues in themselves of facing that. The very thing that causes the most problems in a person is the resistance to going to the place that will set them free. So they have built up all kinds of like very subtle, defense mechanisms and avoidance patterns. That could be, watching Netflix or eating chocolate or drugs or alcohol. It could be, kind of watching movies. Like I said, there's lots of different patterns where we avoid. And where a person says, I will never let that happen, I never go there, that's exactly their problem, because the control that results from that not going there is what has led to their chronic illness. So my goal is to watch for when they're slipping out and escaping, and I bring them back to continue the journey inward and downward into the point of pain, because that's where the point of liberation is, in the pain.
That's amazing. That's absolutely amazing. I find that if I do dialogue while they've got acupuncture in, so I've got them back in the clinic, I've got the acupuncture needles in, I've got a little vibrational tool technique on them, maybe a bit of infrared light, some music on the side, then go through the dialogue, find out exactly from a somatic experience perspective where there's some stuck energy or some sort of stuck thoughts. Then the dialogue seems to, in that sort of very theta state, that brain state, almost gets unlocked. I don't know if you use any techniques like that, or use homeopathy while you're doing the dialogue, or you're doing just to break open this hard casing and get them into a different state, like you said. Maybe you can give us your experience.
I think that's brilliant. I salute you for that. It's absolutely brilliant. Anything that will facilitate would be helpful. I have some of the practitioners that I've trained, they'll sit with their patient and have them breathe, and then have them do a short 5-10 minute meditation before the session. I don't find that that's necessary. I don't know. And I'm not saying it's not helpful, but for me, I don't seem to need that when I work with people, because I just am very present, and we just kind of go there. I do think that the practitioner's field also acts as a tuning fork or an acupuncture needle as well, in that regards, right? So it depends on the practitioner. I think if somebody is themselves maybe a little anxious, or a little not confident in themselves, or they have a lot of worry, then they could probably use these facilitative tools to help the person go there. But I do think that the practitioner holds that space. And so even though I work with most of my people through Zoom, like what we're doing right now, I can feel right where they are. I can see when they're connected. I feel the pain, And then when they release it, I feel a sense of relief. I go, oh, I can take a deep breath. They're taking a deep breath, and I could feel this somatic experience happening live and very, very powerfully. So it's kind of cool in that regard.
Incredible. So do you use any modalities or things like psychedelics? Do you do functional mushrooms? Do you do Bikram yoga? Or do you get into a space where some people can use other modalities to help the physiology that's really in a very poor space?
Yeah, great question. So, an interesting trend happening in America with the changing of the laws around psychedelics. So there are different states now where it's legal to use psychedelics as in a medicinal form. And I think that that's an amazing advent of nature and God. It's an amazing opportunity for people. I think the power of psychedelics are incredible to help people that are so stuck that they can't go there consciously, or there's just this big place that they're avoiding. And once in a while, I'll experience that with someone, and they could perhaps use a very, very skilled hypnotherapist or perhaps a psychedelic session. One of the students that I trained, she said she's a naturopathic doctor and also trained in psychedelics. And she said the use of the Vis Dialogue with the psychedelics is a great combo. And she likens the psychedelics to a kind of a spiritual anesthetic, or we could say an emotional anesthetic, such that where they're going is just so painful that they can't go there under regular circumstances, normal circumstances. So a little bit of the numbness that comes with the psychedelic and the opening up of the spiritual realms is a good combo, so they can actually go there and they can move those energies. So that's really great. I myself practice Kriya Yoga. I do Kriya Yoga. I love it. It was life-changing. I actually discovered it during that bout of illness where I was so sick that I couldn't even move, with the antimony experience. That was when I discovered Kriya Yoga.
Sure.
And that was really life-changing for me. So I do recommend, in holistic counseling, the Vis Dialogue is the process of holistic counseling that I teach and I practice. The principle that we're working with is the notion that who we really are, the backdrop of our true nature is the I am. It's pure consciousness. Right? And this is not a new concept by any means, although it may be new for Westerners. But in yoga and Taoism and in a lot of mystical paths, this is understood that, the oneness God is pure consciousness. And the only real and accurate statement of that being is I am. And so what is so helpful in the Vis Dialogue is that we understand that the I am is the backdrop that we're looking for, the unconditionality of the being, so that when a person has a condition on what makes them okay, or what they believe they need to be okay or good, that condition, in contrast to the backdrop, can be therefore witnessed much clearer. And that person could recognize, oh, this is a conditionality that I feel I need, and therefore I am striving and struggling to meet that. Let's say my conditionality is I am not enough, and therefore I need to be the CEO, or I need to be respected, or I need to be beautiful, or I need to have money. These conditions, in order to meet, a compensation for the false belief, I am not good enough, are what lead to the illness, or what lead to the problem. So what helps, what I actually share with my patients literally is I'll share that little clip if they need it. I'll say who we really are is we're unconditionally okay. That's the truth. Our true nature is unconditionally okay. There's nothing that we need to be okay. When we believe we need something, externally, we attach ourselves to it and we forget that we're unconditionally okay. And a whole bunch of stress and control and fear will result in that need. And that really helps people surrender to the I am with this principle of I am okay just as I am. It's a beautiful principle. I am okay just as I am. I'm not the best. I'm not the only one. I'm not anything except okay and at peace and just fine as I am. Yeah. So that's
the peace is something that, because people are just operating out of fear. The fear is coming from a separation. The fear is coming from lack of connection in terms of who you really are. Then the body's manifesting that emotion, and then the actions come, the behavior comes, the money, the power, the sex, the drugs, because it's rooted in fear. And that fear is that you're not connected to who you really are. You're not manifesting who you are. And the great I am, God, the divine, you are not unconditionally connected there. And it's a lack of connection and separation. That's the way I see it.
Absolutely. So well said. I would say that's almost like verbatim from the Course in Miracles, which says the original sin, it uses a kind of Christian language. The original sin is the idea of separation.
Yeah.
And upon that original sin, all suffering results from that core delusion of separation. And it is a delusion because we're never, you cannot not be who you are. That's a kind of a point of peace. And again, the beautiful quote in the Course in Miracles: nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. So who we really are cannot be threatened. It can't. It always is. It always was, and it will always be. And that's the backdrop of the I am. So in our state of forgetting, that's an illusion, and that can come into resolution. I think that we were talking about paths, Bikram yoga or Kriya yoga or Taoism or something. There are lots of paths now available to people. And I do encourage some kind of path. It could even just be, taking a piece of weed and chewing on a piece of weed and sitting on a log and reflecting on the I am. But some kind of path of reflection, meditative is good, to focus on this I am and what does it mean for me and who am I really, and to unravel all the stuff that we've attached ourselves to in believing who we are.
And yet at the same time, we're all wounded healers. Coming from the Talmud, we're all wounded healers together, and that makes us okay, not deficient of needing something. And as we are wounded healers and helping one another through connection, there lies in our oneness together, in a very connected community, how we can thrive in a crazy world like this. Even Zach Bush coming here saying cancer starts when a cell gets isolated. It's separation again. It's separation from the other cells that are functioning correctly. Those people that you surround yourself and have the same self-talk about you as they do themselves. If they're the ones bashing you and those are the ones that you're loving unconditionally, if you start listening to that bashing and breaking down, it then changes your own narrative and belief. And so it's our community and our connection, I think, that is crucially important. And it sounds like you've got an incredible community. So maybe tell us a little bit more where people can connect with you, your community. You've got a program, I think a year-long program. You've written a book. Obviously, you're very, very, some part of you is to pass on this knowledge and help people see who they really are, because I think that is fundamentally important. Otherwise, fear comes, and then the what we've said. So tell us about your community.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much. So there's two ways to reach me. One is through the training, and the website is holistic-counseling.ca. And holistic is starting with an H, not a W. So it's holistic-counseling with one L.ca. And that's like for Canadian. And I'm in the US, but that's when I started all this. And for majority of my life, I was in Canada. Okay. And then also for personal healing is Dr. Dr Moshe.com. So people can get in touch with me those ways. And I do have on Amazon, I have my book, Holistic Counseling, Introducing the Vis Dialogue. And that's a good read. Some people have gotten a lot out of that and even had some like kind of spontaneous healing reading that, because they started to ask themselves the questions while they were reading. And it really, they were able to make some strides in their own healing just by the concepts in the book. Yeah. So yeah, thank you for that.
Give a message of hope. We'll have those links in our show notes, and that a message of hope to people hearing. I see that Be Still, it's a very, very powerful, be still and know that I'm God. Psalm 46, the Tehillims that I focus on a lot. I think crucially important, but let's give a message of hope to people out there. I've never seen people in so much despair, discouragement, pain, separation, isolation, just self-preservation at another level because of what's happened. But let's hear from this Dr. Moshe. And what an incredible podcast, and someone committed to bringing such healing and wholeness to so many individuals, especially through this mind-body connection, which I think is becoming a lot more well-known compared to 26 years ago when I started. But let's hear it from you, Dr. Moshe.
Sure. Thank you so much, Steve. Again, it's been such a privilege, and thank you for holding the space and helping so many people with your work. I'm grateful for that. So, I'd like to share a little story, and I think it's very faith building, and it's about something called Project Looking Glass, and it's a little bit of a diversion from what we're talking about here, but it's all connected. So there was the government, let's just say the government for now, has used the technology of artificial intelligence, which was able to sort of gather all the data from vast amounts of data of what people are posting on social media and articles and their blogs, and was able to get, a finger on the pulse of humanity, if you will. And for decades, they've been using this technology to predict how humanity would respond to certain maneuverings of the government. Like, if we do this, they will respond this way. And when they had a very high percentage, they would do that move of the government, and they would get that response from humanity, just as predicted. And they were doing that for a long time. And there came a time, and it actually happened after December 21st, 2012, the Great Galactic Alignment, when they could not avoid a certain outcome, regardless of what they tried. So they tried, if we do this, what will happen? They were trying to kind of manipulate humanity into their desired outcome, but they couldn't avoid a certain outcome. No matter what they tried, it kept going to the same direction. It could no longer change or influence humanity. And so they called a guy in, and this is the guy who actually revealed it. He's sort of like the whistleblower behind this. He was involved in the construction of this AI, and they had, hey, take a look at Joe, the Looking Glass, Project Looking Glass. What's wrong with it? He said, there's nothing wrong with it. It's actually accurate in its prediction. So they didn't like that, right? Because what he's commented is that he believes that this is a great awakening coming for humanity. There's nothing that the powers that be can do to stop it. Nothing. They can, however, play like crybabies and poor losers. So he likens the times that we are in now, I call the end of days, achranit hayamim, the end of days, right? He likens it to two chess players where they're both master chess players, and they both know that player A is going to win no matter what. Player B knows it, but player B is a poor loser, and they don't want to go away. So they're delaying, and they're trying everything they can to kind of maintain control over the game. So this is sort of what we're seeing playing out now in humanity, that the powers that be are trying to maintain control. Nevertheless, in recognition, perhaps consciously or subconsciously, whatever, all of them, that they are fighting a losing battle, and there's nothing that they could do to hold down the humanity's great awakening. So I hold that in my mind. And I would also just encourage people to, as you mentioned, Tehillim, the be still and know that I am God. You could say, be still and know that I am that I am. And just to seek stillness as the center point of all movement. So no matter what we have to do, if I have to go out and mow the grass, if I have to, face a great challenge in my life, to start from a place of stillness. And the results will be wondrous for each person that can come from a place of stillness. So that's what I want to, I can end with that.
Brilliant. We'll just declare favor and blessing over you, that you would rise up in your calling, in your stillness and your connection. And so thank you for your time, and you're welcome to come to South Africa. We'd love to have you in our home. Bless you and lift you up and encourage you and exhort you and strengthen you as best as we can.
Thank you. That's such a beautiful, beautiful words. I appreciate that. Very beautiful. Thank you.